Good afternoon to the people in this part of the world, and good morning to the others across the Atlantic and beyond. Welcome all to the 13th installment of the Mentoring Talks, a central pillar of our transformative education drive at the American University of Beirut, right here in Lebanon. Although I am addressing you through a new medium, my excitement for hosting this lectureship is at all-time high. For those yet unacquainted, the Mentoring Talks is a series of presentations given by accomplished professionals from a variety of backgrounds. While these stellar individuals possess star-studded careers, do not let the glimmer of their gems deceive you. Every speaker that has presented on this platform, including today's esteemed guest, has spent the majority of their time speaking about failure. From the point of view of the mentors, failure is not the end of their journey, but rather the very beginning. These words ring especially true when applied to the life and works of today's distinguished guest, Professor Jan Heemstra. Professor Heemstra is a talented chemist who is a leading figure in every endeavor she sets her mind to. Her main research interests lie in the supramolecular structures of biomolecules, with a particular focus on nucleic acid assembly. Professor Heemstra is an associate professor of chemistry at Emory University. Professor Heemstra is one of the most influential scientists on social media. Her daily tweets have become the source of inspiration of thousands of students and young researchers around the world. Her impactful contributions to PH depression, failure mindset, and other platforms have made her an iconic figure for mentoring, recognizing the importance of mental health, and transformative education. She has become an advice columnist in the Chemical Engineering News and is referred to as a social media sensation. Professor Heemstra is also a vocal advocate in the scientific community. The encouragement and motivation that she provides to her students is nothing short of transformative. Indeed, mentoring and research guidance are at the forefront of Professor Heemstra's educational outlook, which includes informing her students about the inevitability of failure. Perhaps Professor Heemstra's favorite scientist, Rosalind Franklin, stands as a perfect symbol for this attitude of perseverance in the face of adversity. Such advice is especially applicable to our modern times, with the COVID-19 pandemic stagnating progress and providing us with unique challenges to overcome. The title of Professor Heemstra's talk is Failure Can Fuel Your Success When You Become a Student of Your Struggle. In her own words, and I quote, "Success may be defined by the moments when everything is going right, but it is largely determined by what we do in the moments when everything is going wrong." End of quote. So without further ado, let us see what we can learn from adversity by inviting Professor Heemstra herself to take the floor. Jan, the floor is yours.
Wow, thank you so much for that extremely kind introduction. Let me figure out if I can share my slides here. Oh, there we go. Wow, I don't even know how to follow that because that was so incredibly kind. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here, Professor Kaafarani. Thank you for organizing this entire series. I think, gosh, I wish there had been something like this when I was a student, because all of these stories of failure and mental health challenges, they just weren't things we talked about as openly. And so many of us, just went about thinking we were alone in this. And I think that there's so much to be gained by sharing these stories. So thank you so much for providing this platform for AUB and now for the entire world through the internet. And thank you for the opportunity to be a part of it. It's just such an incredible honor. So And you gave me the perfect introduction for this exact talk, because you'll have to kind of wait until the end. But the punchline is at the end that really everything I've been doing over the past 2 years, has come out of probably the biggest failure of my life. The worst, definitely the worst day of my career, probably the worst day of my life. And if I hadn't gone through that, there would be, I'll talk about this, there would be no me on Twitter, there would be no me in CNE News, there'd be no me trying to change. Maybe I'd still be trying to change academic culture, but not as visibly, and I wouldn't be getting to be here today talking to you. So all of that has come out of kind of something that really did not go well in my career. So, but you'll have to wait for that. I'll rewind and start a little bit earlier. And so, and actually kind of part of that earlier is that, I had planned this talk about a year ago and wrote this title and picked out the tweet about a year ago of what I was going to talk about. And obviously a lot has happened in that year. And I think hopefully this topic feels more relevant than ever right now, right? That I think we're certainly experiencing adversity at very high levels right now. I think all around the world. I know for so many people who are in Beirut and in Lebanon in general, a lot of adversity, and my heart just goes out to all of my friends there. I'm thinking about you and what you're going through, and out of that adversity, there's the adversity, but then there's also on top of that, just, with the pandemic, we don't get to do our jobs the way we're used to doing them. And just that itself inherently feels like a failure. I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm failing at everything in my career right now, because all of the things I thought I was good at, now I don't get to do them. I don't get to do them in the same way that I used to. And so it just feels like a struggle. But hopefully something that you can take away from today is that, coming out of this, hopefully we will all learn something, we will all grow. Even though it's a struggle, we can all grow and be stronger for it. And possibly there's even some things we can learn in the midst of it about ourselves and about how we can move through life even stronger than before. And so I wanted to start with kind of 2 general lessons I've learned, and Bilal gave us the first one, which is that success, in A, when you look at your CV, that's like all of the moments when things were going right? All the papers that got accepted, all the grants that got funded, all of the awards that you got. But that is like 0.1% of the total story, right? And that 0.1%, the thing we often miss, or that's taken me a lot of my career to realize, is that is largely determined by what you do when everything is going wrong. All of those papers that got accepted, they got accepted because of what you did when your experiments didn't work, and what you did when the first place you submitted it, you got rejected, or you had to do revisions, or that award you got, it might be because of you got rejected from that award, or you got turned down 3 times, but you kept applying, or, you got denied 10 other awards, but you kept applying. And so this is a really important lesson I've learned, that it really comes down to what you do when things are going wrong. Do you take that, get advice, learn from it and grow from it, or do we give up and stop trying? Actually, on the journey to tenure in my faculty career, one of the best pieces of advice I got from a colleague was when I got a grant rejected. And she said, the people who make it aren't the people who get their grants funded on the first try. The people who make it are the people who just keep trying. And that was just so encouraging. So I'm like, I can't control whether I get funded on the first try or on any try, but I can control whether I keep trying. And that gives you kind of a path forward. Excuse me. And then the other lesson, I hope you take away, so I'm going to talk about kind of a series of events. It's not all of them, but some of the things that I've encountered where I've encountered failures and what I've learned from them. And maybe there's something in there that you can take away and learn from as well. But the much bigger message I hope you get is this one, that, we're scientists. And so we spend our days running experiments because there's things that we want to learn. But really, if we're paying attention, we'll notice that there's a much more interesting experiment going on. And that is our whole life, right? That we are just walking, talking, breathing psychology experiments, right? Your whole life is an experiment, and it is the most interesting experiment you will ever run. And there's so much joy in that kind of process, excuse me, of self-discovery. That as you go through, both good experiences and bad experiences, seeing how you react to it, seeing what you can learn about yourself, and seeing how that can move you forward in your life. And so while, maybe there might be something that that you take away from one of the things that I've learned, hopefully you take away this idea that you can look at every single event in your life, good or bad, and there's something in it that you can learn about yourself or just people in general that you can take forward to both be more effective and also mentor others. And I hope you'll excuse me, my allergies are flaring up, and I also had a really hard workout at the track this morning, so my throat is a little bit caught, but we'll make it through without losing my voice. And so with that, I'll kind of dive into my story. So I wanted to start with probably how I became a scientist. And how I became a scientist was that I was told that I was bad at science. And, the lesson in here might be, and a lot of people would say this about me, that if you want to make me do something, you should tell me I'm really bad at it, and then I can't do it, and then I will make sure that I do it, and I do it really well. And I guess maybe that's part of the lesson, but I actually didn't become a scientist to prove my 8th grade teacher wrong. There's a little bit of a different lesson, but this was probably part of it too. And this happened when I was 14 years old. I was going to 9th grade. I was starting at high school. This is the actual picture of my high school. And I was going to sign up for my classes. And you had to wait in this line. This is before the internet, so you had to wait in this line. And then some guidance counselor with like a little card catalog pulls out a card with your name on it and tells you what classes you're allowed to take. And it turned out in that moment, standing in the front of the line in front of a whole bunch of people, that was the moment where she told me in front of all those people, hey, your 8th grade teacher said that you were not skilled at science, and so you are not allowed to take biology in the 9th grade. So you had to be good at science to take biology in the 9th grade. And this was actually kind of a big deal, because if you didn't take biology, then you couldn't get to all of the advanced science classes. So it was like you were going to be on a track where you do not focus on science during your teenage years. And then it's going to make it really hard to go into science, like in college, right? And so this was pretty devastating. And we can go into the whole, like, should you tell that to a 14-year-old girl? And probably based on the fact that I, didn't do well at memorizing, the carbon cycle or something. But, this was actually a really impactful experience because, well, I took typing instead, so I wasn't allowed to take science. So I was like, what do I take? I'll take, they call it keyboarding, but it's basically a typing class, which is shockingly useful because in this job, you think of scientists, I'm basically a writer. I write probably 20,000 words a day. So typing is useful. But the thing that happened, all my friends took science and I wasn't allowed to. I had one friend who was banished typing with me, but most of my friends joined Science Olympiad because they were taking science. And I was kind of looking for something to do after school. I didn't really want to go home. And they said, you should join Science Olympiad. And I was like, no, I'm bad at science. And they were like, no, you should join Science Olympiad. I was like, no, I'm bad at science. They're like, no, the teacher's cool. Just show up. And that teacher actually kind of changed my life, but also saved my life in a story I won't go into. But I showed up and, I was like, I'm not taking biology. I can't do any of the subjects. And she was like, oh, no, we have one on geology. Nobody takes geology. So, flat playing field, just, learn all about these rocks and where they come from and what they are. And I just dove into it because it was just so much fun. And the lesson I learned was all about motivation, that if I had been told that I was good at science, I probably would have felt all this pressure, like, oh, now everyone's expecting me to be good at this and I have to do this. But instead, there was no pressure. I was bad at it. And it's just something I was doing for fun and nobody was expecting much of me. And so I really did it for myself and not for other people. And that's probably why I grew to love it so much. If you told me I was good at science, I would probably hate science and I'd be an artist now or something like that. And so this really taught me about this idea of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. There's a lot of things that motivate us, but psychology has shown us that, we're happier, we're more effective, we're less prone to burnout if we can find that motivation intrinsically. So I want to do this for me. I want to do this because I want to grow. I want to see what I'm capable of, or just 'cause it's fun, not because people are expecting it of me. And so one of the things I've taken forward out of this is that even when I had to do something for someone else, I have to write a grant that's going to be reviewed by other people. If I can reframe that for myself as something I want to do, I want to write this grant, not because other people will review it, not because we need the money. I mean, we need the money, but if I think about that, I just get stressed. But if I can see it as, oh, it'll be so much fun to learn about this new area of science and be able to brainstorm and see what ideas I can come up with and involve my whole group, gosh, it's going to be a blast to see what we can do. That makes me a lot more effective in my job, and it makes me less prone to burnout. In fact, when I'm getting burned out, it's usually because I've slipped into this extrinsic motivation. Okay, so that's how I became a scientist. So I went to college at UC Irvine. I thought I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I was going to be a molecular biologist. In a turn, we're actually not far from that now. But 6 months in, I was like, well, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I know I don't want to do this, but I have no idea what I actually do want to do with my life. And so I finished my first year. I've been hanging out with all these biology majors who always talk about organic chemistry. It's like this dreaded class. So I was like, okay, summer after my first year of college, let's just get this class over with. It's going to be this horrible class, but I hate it. It's going to be hard. Let's just do it. And I came in that class terrified. And I worked harder in that class than I've ever worked in my life. But the strange thing that happened is that, halfway through, I was like, okay, I'm working so hard. I'm terrified. But, I know that it doesn't feel hard yet, but the hard part is coming. The hammer's going to drop. And then it never did. And it was that I went in just so devoted and so driven to work hard. But what I was doing was actually kind of fun because I was pushing myself hard and I was actually learning a lot and having fun with that. And so, I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but I had the opportunity through actually a paying job I had to get into a research lab. And so I joined the lab of Professor James Nowick, who's a phenomenal mentor, a phenomenal person, a phenomenal scientist. And even then, I spent my first year in lab saying oh, I'm just having a blast. I worked a lot because I just loved it. I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I have no idea what I want to do with my life. But this is kind of fun. And then about a year in, I was like, oh, maybe this is what I actually want to do. Maybe this is what I want to do with my life. Maybe this is what I want to do with my career. And that's how I chose my career. And a lesson out of this, I think, is especially prescient for kind of this generation coming through college that, I think we do a big, we talk about having a career that you're passionate about. I'm clearly very passionate about my career. I love this quote from Angela Duckworth that people have a voluntary obsession with their careers. I have a voluntary obsession with my career. We've kind of turned it into this, oh, that means that there is one thing that you are meant to do. You have to find your passion. You have to find the one thing that you are perfectly suited to do, and then that will unlock all the keys to happiness in your life. And that part is false. You should enjoy your work. But it isn't that there's just something out there you have to find, but rather, what Angela Duckworth says is you should develop your passion, not follow it. Or actually in an interview with her, Adam Grant says, passion is a consequence of effort, not just a cause. It wasn't that chemistry was my magic thing that I just had to go out there and find. And if I didn't end up in chemistry, I'd be miserable in my career. No, it was something that, yeah, sure, it taps into a lot of my skills. It taps into a lot of things with my personality, what I love. But it was more that I just worked really, really hard at it. And I enjoyed it. But then that made me work even harder. And it wasn't like I walked in and did a month of research and said, ha, this is what I want to do. It took a long time. It took until I got better at it, until I really realized oh, I really, really love this. And actually, I think I do want to do this with my career. And so, if you're kind of looking for that magic thing that's your career passion, it's not going to be magical. It's going to be the result of just choosing something that's interesting to you that you enjoy, but then working really hard at it. So that convinced me, okay, I want this career in chemistry research. So I need to go to grad school. Thankfully, I had great mentors who told me you should go to grad school because I didn't really believe in myself. So I went to grad school. I went to the University of Illinois. I joined the lab of Professor Jeff Moore, who will play kind of a leading role in much of the rest of this talk. Grad school was amazing. I had a blast. It was like the idea that I can, be laying awake in the middle of the night thinking about how to run an experiment, how to measure something, how to troubleshoot something, come up with an idea, and then like the next day I can go into the lab and like try my own idea, like my idea, and I can try it, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But that was just so empowering to me, and just so, oh my gosh, so much fun. And so grad school is amazing. I could just do research all the time. I didn't have to have these other paying jobs to make it through college. And 3 years of grad school were pretty, I mean, I had a lot of failures and a lot of frustrations, but it was pretty great. And then my life kind of fell apart. We had kind of a tragic death in my spouse's family. And then not long after that, my dad passed away. And then I went to this actually kind of a little memorial board from his memorial service. You can see here a wedding photo, kind of some funny wedding photos of me with him. And then at his funeral, I found out that my best friend had cancer, and she passed away not long after that. And then we lost just a whole bunch of people in our lives, friends and family who we cared about. And it was a really hard year. And it was my last year of grad school. And then it got worse, if that was possible. On the day of my thesis defense, I had a postdoc lined up with someone I never worked for, so don't look at my postdoc advisor and thesis defense. I had a postdoc lined up, and on the morning of my defense, he called me. And this isn't like, oh, I'm on my cell phone somewhere. This is like I'm on like a phone in the middle of the lab in front of everyone. And he called me 2 hours before my defense and said, hey, I know I offered you this position, and I think you're really great. And obviously, you're going to do great stuff. But because you're a woman and you might get pregnant, and we do organic chemistry, I just can't run the risk that you might, be out of lab for 9 months because you're pregnant. And so I have to take back my offer of a postdoc position. So it was like hours before my defense, and this person knew that too. And I was just devastated, right? This is maybe the first moment when it really, really hit me what it was going to be like to be a woman in this field of chemistry. And I was just standing in the middle of the lab, months earlier, I stood on that same phone hearing that my dad had died and bawling. And then I stood there with this news, just bawling. And so I walked, I eventually hung up the phone, walked 10 feet down the hall. And the lesson I learned is that great mentors are people who are on your side, and they are mentors for life. So that was the day. I often say you should choose your mentors, choose your PhD advisor, not based on who you want to work for when everything's going right, but who you want to work for, whose office do you want to walk into when everything is going wrong. Because on that day, on the day my dad died, he gave me a hug and said, take all the time you need. On this day, he said, what did he say? Oh, this is the greatest advocacy. He said, that sucks. That's unfair that happened. That's not right. And he said, we are going to make this right. This is like, if you want to know how to be an advocate, this is how you be an advocate. He said, we can't tell you that you can have this career and then not provide a path for you to have it. And we're going to make sure that there is a path for you. It won't be this, but that's okay. And so on that day, I learned what great mentors are and what great mentors aren't. I learned that I had a great mentor in my PhD advisor, and that was amazing. I also learned that this person who took away the offer, it was their loss. I realized that I dodged a bullet there. If I had gone to work for them, they would have killed my passion in chemistry by what they required of people. A lab that probably required like 80 hours a week, and it just would have killed me. And so I also realized, like, oh yeah, now especially in hindsight, that person didn't deserve my effort. If they weren't going to be on my side, if they didn't care about my future, they didn't deserve those 2 to 3 years of my life. And so it was actually I was the one who kind of, dodged a bullet that day, not them. And so mentors will show up actually in this story as well. So I went through my PhD. I ended up, because that postdoc didn't work out, I took some time in industry. And during that time, I kept thinking about what I want to do with my life. And it turns out that for about 10 years, I've known that I desperately wanted this career, the career I have now. I knew I wanted this, but I never told anyone because I was convinced it was absolutely unattainable for just a lot of reasons. Partly how I was brought up, the faith tradition which I was brought up, women were not supposed to have careers. You're supposed to get married and stay home and have children. and do what your spouse told you to, and you were not supposed to work outside the home. So I had that going against me, and then I, had lost this postdoc, and I had so much self-doubt. I was just like, I look at what my advisors do. I sat down with Jeff, and he said, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, I desperately want this career in academia, but I just look at what you do, and I can't do that. And this was a great conversation with Jeff Moore. He said, of course you can. I was like, oh, okay. He said, not yet, but you'll get there. This is, when I was about to head off for my postdoc. So, and what he told me is, he said, yeah, when I was a postdoc, I couldn't do what I'm doing now as a professor. He said, as an assistant professor, I couldn't do what I'm doing now as a full professor. And 10 years from now, I'll be doing things that I couldn't do right now, but you'll get there. You grow and you get there every day. And the lesson I learned out of this is like kind of one of these, just really, it's like really the source of my self-doubt is this cognitive distortion. And it's this idea that, right, like, here's me, I'm little and smiley. Here's someone I look up to, they're bigger, a little less smiley, hard to be as smiley as me. And here, this x-axis is like time, and the y-axis is like ability, right? So they're further ahead of me in their careers, and they have more ability. And here's the insidious part, right? The way you think about, well, how do I get there? How do I get to somewhere similar to that? Is you backtrack to, well, where were they when they were at my career stage? And this is the trick my brain plays on me. Is I backtrack, and I say, well, they were, younger. They were earlier in their career. But with all the same ability they have now, that's what I picture in my head. And the problem with this is then the only way I can get to where they are is to do this. I need to wake up tomorrow with like all of the skills and abilities that they have, right? And I am not a physical chemist, but I know that this is a disallowed transition, right? I cannot just wake up tomorrow with all of the creativity and knowledge and experience and ability to write grants and ability to manage labs that my PhD advisor had. So that meant if I can't do that, I can't get to where they are. And what Jeff's advice told me, I thought, this is how it happens. This is how they get there. And this is how you can get there too. It's actually, since I was at the track this morning, I'll share, it's like running. You can't just hop off the couch and go run like a 6-minute mile, or most people can't. But you can maybe hop off the couch and go run a 10-minute mile. And if that feels uncomfortable, over time, if you do that again and again and again, it'll start to get easier. And then you can say, maybe I can run a mile in 9 minutes. And that'll feel hard, but then it'll get easier. And then 8, and then 7, and then 6. And that's really what Jeff's advice was, is that every day you are pushing yourself. You have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. It has to feel uncomfortable. You have to be doing things that feel scary and challenging. But if you do that every day, you will keep growing. And over time, you will get there. And a really good thing to do is, it's hard to look ahead at what you're capable of. But look back a couple of years, take something like presenting a group meeting or writing a report, and look at how much easier it is now, reading a journal article, how much easier it is now compared to 3 or 4 years ago. And you realize just how much you've grown. When I was an assistant professor, I couldn't do what I do now. I sure hope 5 years from now, I'm doing stuff that me couldn't do right now, but you get there. And so you might think at this point, oh, well, that solved the self-doubt problem. I was all set. I decided for a career in academia, and everything went smoothly from there. That couldn't be further from the truth. It was enough to get me pumped to go to what ended up being my actual postdoc. Okay, sorry. We achieve our goals. Yeah, we don't achieve our goals in kind of these big leaps and bounds, but by taking a step forward every day. So yeah, so this convinced me to go to my postdoc. Where I had a phenomenal postdoc mentor. I worked for David Liu, and it was just such a great experience. And I was pretty okay, yeah, this academic career, maybe I can do this. Let's at least give it a shot. And everything was kind of going according to plan, except for, well, remember that part where I lost the postdoc offer because I might get pregnant? Well, it turned out that that was maybe something I actually couldn't do. Found out that maybe we could never have kids, that I had infertility, and that maybe, yeah, kids were never going to be in the future. And then we miraculously got pregnant, and then we got lost. And so we kind of decided, well, everyone tells me that as a woman in science, at that time, you should wait until after kids to have tenure. But I was like, well, if with everything that's going on, I might never be able to have kids. And if we wait, almost certainly we'll never be able to have kids. So, we just need to be like, whenever this happens, it happens, if it ever happens. Well, it turns out the time that this happened was the week we moved to Boston for my spouse and I for our postdocs. We moved to Boston, and that week found out that we were pregnant with what would become our first child. With a picture of him as a little baby in our little Boston apartment. And so my first conversation with my postdoc mentor was, hey, so I've got some news. Thankfully, again, the power of working for amazing mentors, he said the one right thing you can say in that conversation, which is congratulations. So kudos to him for that. But this just fueled more of that self-doubt, because now I was like, well, everyone I know who has made it in academia at the type of schools I want to go to, who's a woman, had either didn't have kids or had kids after tenure. I'm starting this job as a baby. Like, I have an amazing spouse, but like, I haven't seen an example where this can work. And I now know there were like a few out there, and thankfully now there's many, many, many more. But at the time, I was just like, this just isn't a thing, and I'm going to fail. And then I'm going to let down all these people who have joined my lab, or I'm going to like wreck my family. And so maybe I can't do this. And thankfully, again, great mentors stepped in and said, at the end of the day, you just have to go for it. Like, if this is what you want, just try it. And I was like, okay. And this was one of the lessons I'll get to at the end. It's like, okay, I can live with failure. I have to get to a point where I'm okay with failure, and where I realize I'd rather live with failure than live with regret of never trying. Like, if I lived my whole life and never tried for this thing that I knew I wanted, that's a lot harder to live with than failing. And so, I decided to go for it. But the only problem is that, most people spend their entire postdoc or even part of their grad career coming up with their plans for their independent research programs. They're like, oh, I'm ready to apply for jobs. I've got these proposals. I've been thinking about these for 3 years. I was like, I've got a month. I've got a month till applications are due. And I have not been thinking about this for 3 years. So, oh my goodness, we have to throw some ideas together. And so I kind of knew, okay, hopefully these are good enough ideas to get me a job, but they're not like what I want to do in our research program. And so they did. I was very, very lucky that I landed this great job at the University of Utah. But then on my first day, when everyone else was like, all right, let's start doing, executing the plan that we planned out for our research program, I was like terrified. I sat in my office and thought, oh my gosh, I have this lab. What do I want to do? What is our program going to be about? Everyone else knows what there's going to be about, and we got to figure this out on the first day. And to be honest, I feel like 10 years later, I've just been playing catch up every day with my research. Again, we publish these papers, and it might look like, all this is planned. It's like, no, we're just trying to, I never had that plan going in, and we're just going along. But what I've learned is sometimes different, it isn't how most people do it, but sometimes different is better. Because what happened is that I didn't come in with a really strong plan of what I was going to do. But it turns out that the more important plan was just to recruit really great people and give them tons of autonomy and support them in everything they do. And they are the ones who drive the ideas. So it changed our lab. Instead of me driving the ideas, our lab has always been the people in the group coming up with the ideas and driving the ideas and writing the proposals. And I have data now. I have so much data that this has made us more successful. That our funding rate, our success rate in funding and publication has only continued to go up the more and more and more the people in the lab are involved in generating the ideas and writing the grants. And so it taught me, sometimes, you can't do things the way everyone else is, but sometimes that actually leads you to something that might be better. And it's also just a heck of a lot of fun because the people I work with are so creative. And the ideas they come up with are so great. And just to be able to be a part of that and see them do that, gosh, it's so much fun. So there's that, we were driving these ideas and publishing papers and getting money. And that brings me to this last story, which is, so all of that was going swimmingly, we're building, a record of our research program as a group. And in the US, about 5 years in, you have what's called this tenure vote. And this is where your department kind of votes that either, you have either to give you a job forever or to make you lose your job. So they call it up or out. You either get promoted and you have this job and tenure, or you are like literally out of a job and you need to find a new job and probably find a new career. And my vote did not go as I expected, and I was devastated. Everyone said it was going to go well, and then I was told it did not. And it was the worst day of my life, but it turned into the most important day of my career. I won't belabor the story, but suffice it to say that, the part that was the worst day of my life, I had this meeting with my department chair, and then I called my spouse who was at home because we actually had to go to my brother's wedding. We had to go get on a plane that night to go to my brother's wedding. And I told him, and then I went and told my group, and we were all shocked. We still drank the champagne that we bought, and it's my most prized champagne bottle. And a few things that happened, right? I was devastated because I was like, I have let down. I was like, did I mess this up? And in doing so, I have wrecked things for my family and for my lab. By making this mistake and, letting my ego get in the way, I have wrecked things for all of the people I care about the most in this world. And that is, I'll tell you, if you haven't been there, that's about the lowest you can ever feel, is when you've let down the people you care about the most. But what happened is that those people stood by me. As I was like, okay, what is next? Do I move to industry? What's going to happen? My group, I went and told them, and they were angry. But then they said, hey, we've got all these grants. We've got all these papers. We do great science. We're excited about our projects. You're going to get tenure somewhere. It turned out I did get tenure at that school, and then we did still move. But they said, you're going to get tenure somewhere. And as long as we get to keep doing the science and being our lab, we're just going to go wherever that is with you, and we're going to keep doing our research, and we're just going to keep doing things as if this, had gone differently. And wow, what that did for me as a person and for our lab culture is we were already trending towards this lab culture where I view everyone as my collaborators and equals and colleagues, and it seismically changed our lab culture in a single hour in a way that it will never, ever go back. And so because of this experience, and then, we got all these grants funded, more grants funded that year, we got tenure, and then we got recruited somewhere else, and everything that kind of came out of it well. But, really because of that, I realized I'm stronger than I thought I was. I didn't think I could go through that, and then I didn't have a choice, and then I did. I'm way more empathetic, boy. You have something hard happen in your life and you grow a lot more empathy. You can choose to. You can either grow bitter or you can grow more empathy. As I mentioned, this changed our lab culture in a way that will never, ever go back. And my job is so much more fun because of that, and so much more fulfilling because of the amazing people I get to work with and how we get to work together. And this made me fearless. I was pretty outspoken before, but wow, after going through this, it's like, I'm afraid of basically nothing now. And this made me very outspoken to say, wow, I see all of these things happening in academic culture with mental health, with the need for better mentoring, with the need for better professional development, with the need to recognize the validity of all career paths, with the need to create inclusive environments where everyone can be successful. There's a lot of work to do. And, now I am not afraid to just be super outspoken and try and do that. So this is the story where if I hadn't gone through this, there would be no me on Twitter, no me blogging or writing in CNE News. And so the thing that turns out to, or the thing that feels like your biggest failure may turn out to be the most empowering experience of your life. And I hope I never, ever lose kind of the fire and the empowerment that came from that. I hope I don't have to go through it again, but I'm up for another promotion right now. Hopefully it will not be the same, but this has forever changed my life. And so I'm going to have something. I always say when you go to a talk, the worst thing that can happen is you walk away and you're like, that was a really cool talk. And then it's like, what did you change because of it? Or what did you learn? And it's like, well, I don't know, but it was fun. So I do this in my lab when we do professional development. You have a little bit of homework. So I'm going to give you two things, and I'm going to have you do a screenshot of this. I'm going to give you like 2 minutes to think about it. And I'm just going to sit here quietly, and then I'll wrap up really quick. But keep thinking about this. Feel free to take a screenshot. And I'm just giving you 2 minutes of quiet to answer these questions for yourself. And then hopefully you share them with someone else. For a smaller group, I do a chat, but I think with a group this size, it would be tough. You can bring them up in the Q&A. But, think about something that didn't go as planned. What did you learn about yourself, and how did you grow out of that? And then think about a challenge you're facing right now. I think we are all facing a challenge right now, right? That's true all the time, but especially right now. What's something you've already learned about yourself in that? And how do you think that can help you in the future? All right, I'll give you 2 minutes, really quick, kind of write this down, and then you can keep thinking about it. All right, hopefully you've written down some things. And what I want to encourage you is to just keep thinking about this, and build this habit into your life of thinking about the challenges you go through and what you learn from them, and both how, it's actually, psychology tells us that this is the difference between people who go through challenges and kind of don't recover versus those who grow even stronger out of them. There's many, many differences. But one of the big differences, one of the things you can set yourself up to be one of those people who come out of challenges stronger than ever and more successful than ever is if you can recognize, well, there's actually 3 elements to it. One is don't go it alone. Surround yourself with people who are going to support you. Reach out and share some of this with someone you care about. The second thing is realizing how it's benefited you. Seeing how you've grown, how you've gotten stronger, how you've gotten wiser, some life lesson you've learned out of that. And then the third one is thinking about how you can use that to help other people. So thinking about, okay, now that I've been through this experience, I'm going to be able to mentor someone who's been through something similar. Or what I'm going through, other people are seeing that and realizing, something about me, or realizing that, you can be this strong, or, I'm going to use this, even in the midst of this, to help other people. And while that sounds kind of, upside down, again, psychology tells us that it's that ability to find kind of meaning and purpose in our struggles that actually helps us build our resilience. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean you don't want to give up. It doesn't mean it's not painful. But it does mean that you can grow out of it and you can overcome it. And so just to conclude, I'll say that, often, yeah, exactly like Dr. Kaafarani started with, and we see career paths, and I do too. I see people's career paths on their CV or in their intro and think it looks like this, but really it looks a heck of a lot more like this for almost everyone. And when you are like way outside the career path, kind of wandering in this faraway place, it might feel like I'm just going nowhere. I'm going farther away from my goals. However, you are not. The things you're going to learn in that place and the strengths you're going to gain in that place are what are going to make you more successful in the future once you're on that path. And you'll also notice there's like nothing on here that's actually on the path. Everything is somewhere else. You never feel like you're really directly getting where you want to go. And then just a few kind of, hopefully words of wisdom that I've learned that may be valuable, maybe not, but there's things that I use to coach myself, which is that, success is actually kind of hard to find when you're focused on being successful. Like if you're driving for those extrinsic metrics, it actually, for a lot of reasons, makes it harder to be successful. But if you're just, being strategic and working hard and being ambitious, but focused on being outstanding for you, focused on being the best that you can be and being excellent at whatever is in front of you, whatever job it is. If it's not the job you want, whatever job, the way you get the job you want is being excellent at the job that you're in. And that is what really kind of fuels success. And certainly there's a lot more to it, but that's a key element. One of the other things that's key to it is don't go it alone. Find great mentors. Go out and ask people to be mentors. You can ask people to be your mentors. I do this a lot. Most of my mentors are mentors because I have asked for their mentorship. And be that person for other people. No matter where you are on the career path, there is someone who is looking up to you. if you're in high school, if you're in college, if you're in grad school, wherever you are, there is someone who is behind you on that career path and wants to be where you are, and you can be a mentor to them. This one I talked about, failure is going to happen no matter what you do. But for the most part, unless you're like, free soloing a mountain like Alex Honnold, we can overcome failure, but it is a heck of a lot harder to overcome regret. If you don't do something, don't try something you want to try because you're afraid to fail, that's hard to overcome. You can try, fail, and move on, and maybe eventually succeed at it. But living with that regret is a pretty bitter thing to have to do. And this sounds a little bit cliche, but gosh, it's just so darn true. That it is not about reaching a destination. It is about just enjoying every step of the journey and enjoying every day and enjoying it. Not so much out of success. The success is fun. The success is important. Publishing papers is important. But really, the much bigger joy you'll find is in learning and growing and building relationships as you go along. And on that note, the people I really have to thank are all of these people in this photo and many, many more. This is a little outdated because we can't get together like this because of coronavirus. But yeah, the people I work with are just the most amazing people, and their creativity and drive fuels me every day and makes this job so much fun. And it's just such a privilege to be a part of each of their careers. And, I hope that wherever you're at, you're able to, again, mentor and build relationships with people because, it's fun to get a paper accepted, but that is very fleeting. And the really, really fulfilling things in your career are going to be the relationships you build and getting to be a part of those people's lives and careers. And so with that, I will say thank you so much again for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for coming today, and I'm happy to take questions.
Well, on behalf of all the attendees, I would like to sincerely thank you, Jan, for such an inspiring mentoring talk. And you're going to be hearing me only applauding right here. I cannot unmute everybody, otherwise it's going to be chaotic. For questions, I would like to ask the attendees, please enter in the question and answer box. What's your name? Where are you coming from? What do you do? And write your question. I'll be reading the question, and Professor Jan Heemstra will be answering the question. We're going to do that for the next 10 to 12 minutes so that we don't keep Professor Heemstra from her work for a longer time. Thank you so much for your time again, Jan.
Oh,
so
thank you.
The questions are, the floor is open to questions.
I did see a question about what to do when you fail. And so I'll tackle that one. I'll say, it varies by person. I think this is something that, this is actually one of those self-discovery things. Everyone responds differently to a failure or rejection. There's so much rejection in this field, right? Rejected papers, rejected awards, rejected grants, and finding how you cope with it. The thing that's hard is that we feel out of control. And so you feel out of control of the outcome. But if you can at least feel in control of your response to it, that's actually really empowering. And so for me, the first big grant we got rejected, I was curled up under my desk crying and looking for new jobs. And but then I, kind of realized oh, okay, I'm going to walk through this process that for me looks a lot like the 5 stages of grief. But by the next morning, when I come into work and start brainstorming ideas with my group, that's what's going to pull me out of it. I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to feel lousy for a day. But then by the next day, it's like if we start talking about what's next, my short attention span will kick in. It'll be like, all right, let's go for it. And so now, even though it still really hurts and it's still really challenging, I at least know what I'm going to go through and when I'll feel better. And the other thing I'll say is get advice. When I had this thing happen with my tenure, I reached out to a few mentors, people I really, really, really trusted, and I got advice. And I got advice from 5 or 6 people, and I got 5 or 6 very different pieces of advice about what I should do. And that was really important to me because it taught me when it's really important, get lots of perspective. And a lot of people who normally give you great advice, they just don't know everything of the situation. And so, I couldn't follow all the advice. Some of it was great and some of it wasn't. It's not because those people don't give good advice. They just didn't, they had a different perspective or they didn't understand all of the situation. And from that, I decided what I wanted to do. But it was really informative both to have people who supported me and who were there for me and were helping me cope, but then were also helping me decide what to do next. So I highly, highly suggest that.
There are so many questions, Jan.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know from where to start. Okay, so let me see here. I try to, so here, Maria Abu Murad, because of the COVID-19, I had to change my thesis subject because I could no more do face. Oh, they are moving too fast. Okay, I lost you. I'm sorry, I lost you. I'll get back to it. I'm Muhammad Ali Faqih, PhD candidate in mechanical engineering. I'm currently looking for a job or postdoc after graduation. After your talk, I think I felt afraid of getting somewhere I don't want to be or having a bad mentor. Any advice? Many thanks.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. You know, definitely try to choose your mentors well, in as much as you can choose. But something I think we forget, and I didn't even talk about this part of my story, is that even if you're not, and I think this is really, really important right now, because with COVID-19, jobs are tougher. You know, you can't do what you were planning on doing often, and you might end up somewhere that's not really where you wanted to be. And that, it stinks. It is not fair. It is not fair to people coming on the job market right now. But it's kind of the reality, right? And so I think something that's really, if there's any kind of solace in it, it's that, you know, even if you're not in the job that's your dream career, it is not wasted time, and it doesn't mean that you can't get there. I spent about 2 years in industry, and that was a really, really challenging time for a lot of reasons. It was not where I wanted to be. It was not a good work environment. It actually kind of destroyed me as a person. I came into my postdoc very having no confidence in myself at all and thinking I was not capable of anything, and I was really kind of a mess. But I actually still took stuff away from that. I learned what I didn't want to do with my career. It was good. It pushed me in that sense. I learned how to deal with some really toxic people and how to manage that and how to not let them get to me. I learned that I should have left that environment sooner. That was a really good lesson for me. And I just learned some cool science on there still. So I would say that was a really hard experience. And it was kind of like, well, this is the thing when I lost that postdoc opportunity, this is the thing that's in front of me. And so I'm going to take it, and it turned out to be pretty awful. But it's still part of my story. And I don't know that I'd be able to do what I'm doing now without that being part of my story. And there are just even some practical skills I took away from that. I did medchem. And so the knowledge I have from that is actually helpful. So never see it as wasted time. Again, that time knows that you're not on the path to where you think you should go. It's not wasted, and there's always something you can take away from it. But do as much as you can. Try and choose, good environments with good people.
Rita Sarkis, bioengineering PhD student at EPFL, Switzerland. Her question: what is your vision towards mental health in academia, mainly among PhD students? What is the role of a mentor to help a depressed PhD student?
Yeah, oh gosh. Yeah, we really have to address this. There's there's really two things we have to address. There's certainly, students who have, like when I lost my dad, my best friend, I did deal with depression. And, my mentor was there for me. Thankfully, I had a doctor who was like, I went there for like a regular checkup. He was like, you're not doing okay. You're going to go see a counselor. And I got help. So we definitely need those support systems for people where, either chronic mental health challenges or life situations, push you into depression or anxiety, or the people who deal with, chronic conditions like bipolar. We need good support structures, and we need to have, just work environments that are able to accommodate people who, need flexible work hours to go to counseling or need to take some time off here and there. We need that, but I also think that, a lot of schools are really focused on, we solve the mental health crisis by getting more counselors and getting more access to counseling. And I'm like, Yeah, that's great. We also need to solve the mental health crisis by making it so that not as many people need counseling. Like there's a lot of the life stuff that happens, and we need support for that. But a lot of the mental health crisis is something that's being caused by the lack of good mentorship, by the toxicity, by I don't like to say, I shouldn't have said that, toxicity, because I mean, there's a lot of things wrong with academic culture. There's a lot of things that are right too, but it's a mix. But it's that the toxic behavior, the toxic PIs, the things that are wrong with academic culture that are causing, we need to kind of get at the root of that and have preventative medicine for that by having better mentorship. And so, I like to say that kind of like, mentorship, mental health, and diversity inclusion are all inextricably linked. And so the challenge is that tackling that is really hard. But the good thing is that when we tackle any one of those things, we make all of it better. And so I think, there is a need to have more mindful mentoring. And again, when students choose the labs of people who are great mentors, we support that. Whenever you have a choice on hiring committees, we can hire people who are committed to diversity and excellence in mentoring. And that's something we do in our department, and we help people grow as mentors and leaders. And this is something I'm really passionate about in my lab is helping people grow as mentors and leaders. I hope everyone that talks, hopefully you are, cultivating your own mentorship and leadership skills so that you can go and be an outstanding mentor and leader to other people. And that's, over time, we can change things. I don't mean to put it on students now. I don't want to say that, but you can have a huge impact over time when you're in those leadership positions. And I think the people in those leadership positions now, we need to keep getting better. I need to keep improving as a mentor and a leader so that, people in my group do feel better supported.
Jen, there are so many questions. I don't know how much time you have. I'm going to keep asking.
I can stick around a few more minutes. Yeah, I'm happy to stick around.
Very good. So this is Hannah Britt from United Kingdom. Hi, Jen. Thank you for a great talk. Do you have any advice for ECRs working for a bad mentor, toxic lab environment, and feel like they can't escape due to their career stage and job landscape?
Yeah, that's a really tough one, and I'm so sorry you're in that situation. It's a situation that is sadly kind of common and should absolutely not be. And so I'm really sorry about that. I'll speak just from my own experience of working in a toxic environment that I felt like I couldn't escape. I think some of it is, definitely cultivate relationships with people outside of that environment. Something that got me through kind of my challenging times is that I still had a really great link to other mentors. I set up the next career stage early. Maybe you have an opportunity to that, maybe you don't, but still cultivate relationships with people who you might want to work for in the future. Definitely keep your relationships going with people you've maybe worked for in the past or networked with in the past. Keep strong ties to your peers who can support you, peers within that group, peers outside of that group. Basically build a really strong support network that kind of substitutes for that PI. There's some things you can do to kind of, with communication, try to navigate that situation directly. It depends on kind of what's going on that's making it toxic. But I would say, take care of yourself, put the people around you who are going to support you. And while it's not fair and it's not right, again, if you can kind of fall back into those, kind of transformative resilience of, surround yourself with people, see something in it for you that you are personally gaining out of it. Like, I'm growing stronger, or I'm learning that I don't want to be a mentor like this. And a positive impact you can have in the future. Like, okay, I've seen what this is like now. And so in the future, I want to be a mentor who, purposely does not do these things, or I want to be an advocate in the future for people who are going through this, or an advocate now for people who are going through this. And again, it's not fair that it's that way, but it's actually something that will help it be, help you protect your own mental health through that experience.
Questions from Dr. Sahar Cooper. She's a nephrologist at UB Medical Center. Is it always hard for females to prove themselves? What if you did not have a supporting mentor or supporting spouse? What are the tips that you use and can give to moms in academia?
Yeah, the supportive mentor one, supportive mentors are key, and that's the easier one to tackle. It's hard, but you can go and find, this is where social media is so great, right? You can network with all of these people and develop relationships it won't happen overnight. You can develop relationships over time with people who can substitute, who can be the mentor you never had in that sense, and who can advocate for you, who can nominate you for awards, who can write letters for you, who can connect you with other people. The spouse one is tougher. I'm fortunate to have a really amazing spouse who shares, he does more of the childcare than I do. He does more of the grocery shopping and meal cooking. He cooks the meals, I wash the dishes. And he's just so incredibly supportive. That's one where if you don't have that, it is really, really challenging. I would say, as much as you can, have that conversation to try and help them see why, it's important. But if you can't, again, build a support network outside. I have, every few weeks I have a late night happy hour with a couple of friends who are also faculty, who most of them have kids, and we just talk about life. We talk about, stuff we're dealing with harassment or discrimination or trying to balance parenthood and work especially in this COVID time, and we support each other and we show up for each other and to still cultivate kind of that network. And I'll say too that, if you're a member of a group where you're going to face kind of discrimination or harassment, I was just talking to someone else about this yesterday. There's the very real fact of I review papers where I'm and it gets in, I just reviewed a paper, it got in against my recommendation for a man, and I knew, and it was male reviewers who let it in, and I'm I know that as a woman, I could never ever publish this work in this journal. I wouldn't even get up for review with this work. And that sucks, and it's unfair. It's unfair to me. It's really, really unfair to my students. That's where it gets me. But if you have to define your win, you got to play the long game. If I let that stuff burn me up, I will burn out and I will not make it. And there are people who are discriminated against way, way more than me and have to deal with that. And so the thing that's really helped me at least is define my win. And my win is not about those papers or those grants. My win is all about the people I get to mentor. My win has all to do with my legacy and what people might say at my retirement party someday. And none of those things require papers. None of those things are things that discrimination or harassment can take away from me. And so that is a place where, when I see someone get an award and I know that they are terrible to their grad students in their lab, it just it hurts, but then it's that's not my win. That's not my win. Getting an award, if it costs that, is not my win. I need to just keep scrolling. My win is to be able to walk in the lab and have great relationships with the people I work with. And as one of my friends said, she's and every once in a while you need to shut your office door and throw things and cry, which I do. But keeping focused on what matters to you and the change you're making.
Couple more questions, if you don't mind. There are people
sure.
from all over the world who
These are such good questions.
Magdalene Sophie Tapam, hopefully I said the name correctly. She is from Uganda. How can I increase my confidence in grad school now? Because my biggest challenge now is adapting to the pressure at grad school.
Yeah. Oh man. I'd say for increasing your confidence, that's so hard because confidence. I have a whole other talk on imposter syndrome and things like that. The confidence is so important because if something steals your confidence, it affects your performance, and then that affects your confidence. But if you can maintain that confidence, not arrogance, but confidence, I know if I work hard, I'm capable of doing all of this. When you can maintain that, it's probably going to make you more successful. So I know I keep coming back to this. It's just all about people. It's having people around you who can build you up and who support you and will cheer for you and root you on. I think and do that for them too. One of the things I didn't realize I needed until I had it is a tight-knit group of people who are ambitious but authentic. You don't want to hang out with the people who are oh, grad school sucks, it's all a mess, no one's ever going anywhere. That'll just get you down. You also don't want to hang out with people who are oh, I've got it all figured out, it's going to be easy. You don't want to be around those people either. you want to be around the people who are like, hey, I have big goals and I think I'm capable of really great things, but it's going to be hard and I'm going to fail a lot and I'm going to doubt myself. And I'm going to be authentic about that in my friendships. And if you can find a group of friends who's like that and you support each other, find those people, be that person for them, and take turns supporting each other and sharing your struggles, but then also building each other up and encouraging each other, that can be absolutely huge. I'll say on a smaller, like day-to-day scale, it kind of comes back to this advice of like, you get there by growing every day. If you want to build your confidence, look at something you're doing now, and then look back at how well you could do that 3 or 5 years ago, and see how much you've grown and how much better you've gotten at it. And that's a pretty good confidence builder. Like, okay, I'm getting somewhere, and I can keep doing this, and I can keep growing.
So this question from Ashish Mandahar from Nepal, and interestingly, the question is in line with the question asked by Yara Minasa, a medical student at AUB. So I'm going to read, they're talking about age, basically, and pursuing education. So I will read Ashish's question. I am an aerospace engineer with Masters of Engineering working in industry since 2014. He's thinking about going into a PhD. Is it too late? He's 32 years old.
Oh, it is absolutely not too late. I think I didn't have quite as much of as many steps early in my career as some people, but I certainly, I took longer at different places, and I'm older than most people at kind of my career stage. And it is never too late. I think 2 things I'll say on that. One is that just in my own experience as a mentor, the people who have been the most successful in my lab, so many of them are people who took 3, 5, 10 years off before grad school. Because, there's something about that time that, you come into grad school, the people who have done that come into grad school knowing exactly why they want to be there. A lot of people go to grad school and don't really know why they want to be there. It's like just the next step on the path, right? I was fortunate. I took a few months off, but went straight in. But because I spent so long not knowing what I wanted to do, and then finally I was like, I know exactly what I want to go to grad school, right? So if you take time off, when you show up and you're like, I know exactly when I want to be here, you have the professional skills from all of the places you've been up until now. Again, just the day-to-day self-leadership and project management, all those skills that you'll bring in that other people won't have. And also, just personal maturity. You're years wiser than other people. And not to say you can't be successful going straight into grad school, but I think that if you've had some time away and you're coming back to it, I found that sets you up even more so for success if you know why you want to be there. And actually, if you need the science behind it, a book I'm reading right now, and I haven't gotten too far into it, but a book that can offer a lot of encouragement on this is it's called Range by David Epstein. And he basically talks about why, kind of the cost of specialization too early. And he has a great quote that I heard on a podcast that said, he was talking about sports, he used to be a sports writer, and he said, the thing that makes the best 14-year-old athlete does not make the best 25-year-old athlete. And it was that idea of if you want to, you can specialize and peak early, but if you want to have a really sustained career, the people who have really, really successful sustained careers, often take time and dabble and try all of these different things before they land on what they really, really want to do. And it's, again, all those things that you don't think are valuable, all those things that aren't really your goal, but can make you really successful in the end. And not saying you can't go straight there. There's lots of paths, but the data actually show that you can be more successful if you kind of come to it later with more experience. And so if you want some encouragement, I highly suggest that book.
2 more questions, I promise.
Cool.
Kartik from India, how do you tackle the stress of COVID on work? How do you schedule your day?
Oh man, how do I schedule? Well, I schedule my days. I mean, in my life, it's kind of similar in that it's like meetings and stuff like that. And I have a to-do list. Again, find a system that works for you. Everyone has a different system. I have evolved a system that kind of is not overly complicated, but has enough information for me to know what to do. I would say, if you're a grad student or postdoc or undergrad working in lab, really depending on what you're at, if you're still out of lab or if you're back, set goals, assign times to things, create a schedule, and have accountability. Have people that you talk to, about your schedule, compare schedules, coach each other on that, and then talk about how it went. And again, just learn every day from like, well, what worked, what didn't. We're in this new situation. What's working for me in planning my day? What's not working? What could be better? I'd say, so there's no right answer there, but experiment. And the project management and time management skills you gain are really going to help in the long run. As for dealing with the stress, I think a lot of it for me has been it's just hard, right? Recognize it's stressful. It's stressful. It's hard. I think realizing you're not alone. I was, we were in a kind of social hour group last night, and I kind of shared that, like, gosh, I feel like I'm just failing as a parent. I'm not the parent I want to be. I'm angry. I'm impatient. And everyone else was like, yep, me too. And it's like, okay, we're not alone. We're stressed, and it's real. And just acknowledge that it's real and that you're not alone. But one of the things I have found helpful is to figure out, like, what is stressing me out. Like, it's usually not the thing I think it is. But if you can drill down and figure out, like, what am I really afraid of, or what is the thing that feels scarce, or what is really bothering me, and is there a way that I can kind of, is it a very real thing, and then I just need to, like, at least recognize that and deal with it, or is it something where I can kind of put some truth to it and be like, okay, that's not, like, for me, one of the things that immediately when we went into lockdown early on, felt like when I was working at home, I felt like every minute that I'm not spending with my kids, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm failing as a parent, and everyone is disappointed and upset at me because I'm doing this instead of spending time with them. But yet I have 8 hours of meetings a day, right? And that was causing so much stress. And so just realizing, oh, that's what's at the heart of it, is that guilt over doing work. Like, not only was I stressed about the work I had to do, I was stressed because I felt guilty about putting time into it. And as soon as I realized, like, no, I still have a job. We still have jobs to do. Our kids are going to be fine. Yes, I need to schedule in times to go and help them with school, and my spouse is doing the same. But when I need to be on a meeting, I at least shouldn't feel guilty about that. And that relieves a lot of the stress, just realizing that. So if you can kind of figure out, yeah, what's really, really bothering you, that can help you get around it to some extent.
So many people are thanking you for the inspiring talk from all over the world. Dimitri Baranov, Muhammad Farhood, and many others, Ala Zain. So I'm gonna end up questions part before I conclude this beautiful mentoring talk with a question from Michelle Shukri, who is a sophomore at AUB studying nursing. Thank you for this inspiring presentation, but how do you know where to start and what to start with if you don't know where you want to reach, or you don't even know the final goal?
Oh, that's such a great question. And it's such a good one to kind of finish with, because I think leaning into that discomfort is kind of the first step. And realizing that, even the people who seem like they have it together don't really know where they want to reach or what the final goal is. I have this career, and there's a way that people normally go in this career, but I've got some goals outside of this career, and I don't know where I want to be 20 years from now. I kind of do, but I don't even still know. And that's part of the fun. I've actually found one of the best things that happened with this whole tenure thing for me is I realized I had mapped out what the next 30 years should look like. And that was actually one of the most depressing things ever, because it was like, oh, well, I know what the next 30 years will look like. It will look like staying here and doing this and doing this and doing this. And now you're left to just, like, live it out. And that's actually kind of boring. It's like you see the path and you're like, oh, now I'm just going to, like, run down it, and it's all predictable. And really opening my eyes up to, like, oh, it's not going to go how I planned. And I don't know where I'm going to be 20, 30 years from now. And I don't know what's coming up. It's scary. It's terrifying. but it's actually kind of some of the fun. It keeps it interesting when you don't know exactly where you're going to go, and you have freedom to make different turns and see what's around the bend and kind of be interested by that. And so while it's very counterintuitive, it feels terrifying, it feels super uncomfortable, but the minute you take that away and map it all out, it's also like very, very disheartening and demotivating. I would say, but what do? How do you keep walking down that path? I usually say, it's good to sit down and have a strategic plan. Like I sit down and think about where do I think I want to be a year from now? Where do I think I want to be 5 years from now? And what do I need to do in order to accomplish that? There's this quote, like a goal without a plan is just a wish, right? So set some goals, make a plan, but be really flexible in those goals. And it doesn't, even really matter. A lot of the leadership, mentors I listen to are like, what the goals are doesn't even really matter, because you're going to do great things in your life. There's lots of great things you can do. The joy of life is to challenge yourself and grow and learn and develop great relationships as you do that. There's probably 20 different or more different goals that you would have a really amazing life, a really amazing 5 years working towards. So pick one and then put a plan in place and work towards it and be flexible. And, in my life, that's just been what's the opportunity in front of me. I took OChem. Because of that, I ended up seeing a sign advertising for a paid job to clean glassware in the stockroom for the undergrad lab. So I said, well, I need a paying job. I didn't hate OChem. I'll do this. And then as I was trying to figure out, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, I needed to do research for my honors degree. So I said, well, I know all these TAs for chemistry. And again, I didn't hate OChem. So I don't know how to join a lab because none of my family's ever really done this. But I know the TAs for grad students, so they could probably help me get in a lab. So, well, I don't know if I'll enjoy chemistry research, but that's the opportunity that's in front of me. So I'm just going to take it and see what happens. And so I'd say, yeah, kind of keep your eyes open, network, advocate for opportunities, but take the opportunities that are in front of you and just keep trying to make the most of them and look forward and set some goals. Don't obsess about what they are, but set goals that seem interesting and work towards them and see where that takes you, and then see what opportunities open up from that. And over time, all of these things build into a path that will have, again, many ups and downs, but will, in the end, take you somewhere interesting.
While we are recording this session, once we are done with the video, I will be sharing it with Professor Heemstra. If she gives us the approval, I'll be posting it on YouTube, and I'll be sharing the link because many had to go to classes and did not finish this. So we will be sharing this. I would like once again to thank Professor Heemstra for this beautiful, inspiring mentoring talk. And I hope we will be able to host you in Beirut and in our beautiful AUB campus. We had scheduled your trip to Beirut twice, but we had to, for different reasons, to cancel it at the last moment. But I still hope we will be able to host you here. I want to thank all the members of my team, my Transformative Education team at AUB. I want to particularly thank Rina Labadidi for designing all the posters, not only your poster, Professor Heemstra, but the posters of everything we do here at AUB. I want to thank Zena Al-Khalil, who was tweeting live. She has been tagging you all over. You will see your Twitter was on fire in the last hour or so. I want to, of course, thank Rena Akouch for designing the logos, and Nabil Halabi, who always put beautiful remarks for me as a draft to work on for the opening remarks. I want to thank all the people who attended from all over the world. Until our next mentoring talk, so long. Thank you all, and thank you, Jen, again.
Thank you.